But it was so smashingly successful that they showed it for a week at His Majesty's Theatre here in Montreal. Took it down to Quebec City and showed it there. Took it up to Bytown, to Ottawa, and showed it there. Your grandfather was a featured soloist on the banjo and featured member of the cast. I think his name was Richard Cartwright. But it was a lampoon on the entire cabinet of Sir Wilfrid Laurier, and some of evolved into fairly close personal friends, like Sir Clifford Sifton, who became a very close friend of your grandfather's, for whom your grandfather made a fortune, and who was the man responsible for my becoming a deacon. Sir Clifford Sifton had been a deacon, and he got in touch with Tau Alpha of Delta Kappa Epsilon at McGill when Sir Clifford learned that I was going to McGill, and said, get young Duncan and rush him and see if you can initiate him. That's how I happened to become a deacon. It was through the Sifton family. Anyway, this program is just, well, it's a hilarious thing. And it brings out your grandfather's name as featured soloist and as a member of the cast in the lampooning that went on. Musical. He could play the mandolin, the guitar, the banjo. He just emanated, oozed music. He just loved music. So his brother and sister were musicians.
Auntie Dorothy was...
Well, Auntie Dorothy got her LAB, which was a licentiate of the Associated Boards, which is the one step higher than the ATCM, which is the top title or the top degree you can get in music in Canada. Annie Marion could play by ear, by sight,
piano.
Anything on the piano.
And what about yourself?
Well, Uncle Fred was pretty good on the violin. I took a little violin, took a little piano, and was starting to become somewhat competent on the clarinet. But I never followed anything through.
He passed on to...
Oh, your grandmother was a fine pianist.
I didn't know that.
Oh, fine pianist.
Oh, maybe
boy.
I remember a little.
She used to sit with me when I was first taking my piano lessons at that concert grand piano and work with me and work with me and work with me. Yeah, oh gosh, she was some mother. And she did absolutely everything she could to foster the well-being of every one of her children. And look, I had a book here loaned to me by Jack Close, who is the retired Senior Vice President of Finance of Royal Trust, on the history of Northwestern Ontario. And I was decimated to find no mention of your grandfather in there, because much of the material for that book came from the Thunder Bay Historical Society, and guess who set the Thunder Bay Historical Society up? Your grandfather. But there was a picture of Grace Ensworth, who went on to become quite a famous dancer. Grace Ensworth is the gal to whom my parents sent me to learn how to do the sailor's hornpipe as a dance. And so your grandmother, musical, and ambitious for her kids, and would just do everything she could to drive her kids on to better themselves. So I had that impulse from my dad, and I had that impulse from my mother, but the one who had the time to spend on me was your grandmother. And, oh, what a gal. What a super gal. No wonder my dad was in love with her so much. My oldest, or one of my very oldest friends, and still today one of my best friends, Al Chappell, once said to me, "Gay, you're a lucky boy. You have the darlingest mother." He said, "I don't think I know another lady that's as fine a mother as your mother."
Hey Dad, where did this business where you at the table where you put the finger up against your nose there, and the last person that did it is the dummy? Where did that
I
come
don't know
from?
where
Did that start at your dad's table?
Oh, sure. Oh, sure.
Annie Dorothy once told me that he had put some kind of a wire around it. If you didn't behave yourself, he could press a button and.
He had the table wired up so that anybody who put their elbows on the table got a shot. And off came our elbows right away. But, oh, say, I could tell more jokes about your grandfather. In fact, there's one here. I'll jump over one here.
Good.
Okay. Reading the story of Lawrence of Arabia. I got to go back to that. Wiring up the couch to get donations. Well, that's the one I'm talking about. Back in the days I'm talking about, the ignition system of the Ford car was an induction coil, and the induction coil, when fired, would release a spark as hot as 25 to 30,000 volts. In dry air, it takes 45,000 volts to jump an inch, and a hot induction coil from a Ford car would jump well over half an inch. So it's 25,000 volts. Your grandfather was president of the Canadian Club in Fort William. And he was always trying to do something a little dramatic. And after every dinner meeting, before the speeches started, there were three guys that always got up from their place and sat on a very comfortable sofa at the back of the room. So Dad figured, I'll get those guys. And he, with a needle, threaded a very, very fine wire back, two of them, back through the fabric of the sofa. Brought them around, brought the wires around, up to, and he had a car battery, a 6-volt in those days, and an induction coil, and a switch, so that when he closed the switch, 25,000 volts would chase out through these two wires. And the dinner was over, and your grandfather had made the normal announcements, and then he says, I have a special announcement to make today. He says, I'd like to talk about a family in dire need down in the coal dock section. The coal dock section was about 1/3 of the way from downtown Fort William over to Port Arthur. And it was the slum district, the poor's district of the Lakehead. And so grandfather said, I'm going to talk about the needs of a family down the coal dock section who have a terrible situation. Last month, the man of the household died. Right now, we're in 25, 28 degree below. That's Fahrenheit. 0. This family has no coal in the coal bin, has no food in the larder. They're in trouble. There are no shoes for the kids to wear. There are 4 children and the mother. They need help. Now, we're going to take up a collection here today, and I would like the first person to offer $100. Well, back in those days, $100 was a huge, big sum. I'd like the first person who would prepared to offer $100 to kick the fund off to please stand up now, and he hit the switch. And 3 gentlemen at the back of the room stood up in a great rush because they had 25,000 volts passing through their BDMs.